I've been covering Unleash the Avatar for a while now, and one thing has become pretty clear. This isn't just another game inspired by Hindu mythology. Recently, the founder of Aeos Games, Varun, shared a long post explaining how they think about the game's universe. And honestly, after reading it, I think people have underestimated just how ambitious the world really is. The founder says something that immediately caught my attention. He says people watch his shots and probably think he's just making another flashy Bollywood inspired game. But then he says he also grew up reading Indian mythology, while also reading thinkers like Nick Bostrom and Kurt Gödel. Now, if those names don't sound familiar, here's why they matter. Nick Bostrom is famous for asking huge questions about reality itself. Could our universe actually be a simulation? Kurt Gödel explored the limits of logic and mathematics, showing that even perfectly logical systems have questions they can't completely answer. In other words, developers aren't just asking, how do we make mythology look cool? They're asking, can mythology become a complete system with its own internal logic? And that's where things really get interesting. The founder also makes it very clear that this isn't supposed to be a good versus bad story. He calls those stories morally boring. Instead, they want players to question things like death, ego, reincarnation, and cosmic balance. Everyone isn't fighting outside the system. Everyone exists inside the same system. Then comes the line that completely changed how I look at this game. The founder says, mythology isn't just the setting, it's a set of rules running alongside classical physics. Think about gravity. Gravity isn't good. Gravity isn't evil. It's a simple law that governs the universe. Varun wants mythology to work the same way. Death, karma, yama, rebirth, they aren't just magical events. They are natural laws that keep the universe functioning. That's a fascinating approach to world building. And then they give one of the coolest examples I've ever heard in a very long time. They ask themselves, what if Yamaloka worked like the human immune system? Think about what happens when you cut your finger. You don't consciously tell your body to fight bacteria. Your immune system automatically sends its first responders. Those first responders, they're called neutrophils. They're basically your body's emergency response team. They rush toward the infection, attack harmful invaders, and stop the damage from spreading. Now compare that to Hindu mythology. The Kinkaras are traditionally the attendants and servants of Yama, the god of death. Their job is to carry out Yama's commands. Varun reimagines them as the universe's first responders. Whenever something spiritually goes wrong, the Kinkaras arrive first, not because they're evil, but because maintaining cosmic balance is literally their job. After the battle is over, another type of cell enters your body. These cells don't fight. They clean up the dead tissue and debris left behind. Varun imagines Pishachas in a very similar way. Instead of simply being monsters, they become scavengers that consume the spiritual remains left after the Kinkaras restore order. For anyone who does not know, Pishachas are twisted beings that roam the cremation ground and dark places. They feed on impurity, fear, and the remnants of the dead. With this, suddenly, Yamaloka isn't just a fiery underworld. It becomes the universe's immune organ. Honestly, that's an incredibly creative interpretation of Hindu mythology. Now let's look at something most people probably ignored. The screens that appear immediately after you respawn. At first glance, it looks like random lore, but I don't think it is. Let's break it down. In Hindu philosophy, Jīva means individual soul, the conscious self that moves through birth, death, and rebirth. But the interesting word here is thread. A thread usually represents something that continues over time. In computing, it's a sequence being executed. In storytelling, It's a continuous narrative. So here's my theory. What if this isn't tracking a character, but tracking a soul? Almost like the TVA in Loki, that tracks branching timelines. Except here, the universe is tracking an individual soul anomaly through multiple incarnations. If that's true, then Vikram isn't simply the protagonist. He is the current soul anomaly being monitored by the universe itself. Now, to be clear, that's just my interpretation, but it fits perfectly with the developer's idea that mythology operates like a structured system. This one's a little easier. Punarjanma literally means rebirth. Iteration simply means which cycle you're currently on. So instead of saying respawn number 1, the game records your first reincarnation. If this number increases every time you die, then death isn't just a gameplay mechanic. It's another recorded cycle in the universe's reincarnation system. That's such a clever way of making the respawn mechanic part of the lore. This one is still a mystery, but the word echo suggests something left behind. Maybe memories from previous lives. Maybe powers inherited from earlier incarnations. Maybe traces of an avatar that came before. Whatever it is currently inactive, which makes me think it's something the players unlock later in the story. This one could become one of the game's biggest mechanics. A ledger is simply a record book. So a karma ledger sounds like a record of everything your soul has done. Now this is a speculation, but imagine if every major decision, every compassionate act, every selfish action, every unnecessary kill was quietly being written into this ledger. If that's true, karma wouldn't just exist as a lore. It could directly affect gameplay. Different dialogue, different abilities, or maybe a different ending. Again, we don't know if that's actually how it works, but if Aeos Games really wants mythology to behave like a system of rules, a karma ledger makes perfect sense. The founder ends the post by saying they have so much more to show, but first they wanted to become really good at combat, animation, art, VFX, and level design. And honestly, I think that's the right approach, because if the gameplay delivers and this world building is even half as deep as it sounds, Unleash the Avatar could end up giving us one of the most original mythological universes we have ever seen in gaming. And after reading all of this, I'm even more excited to see what they're hiding. One thing I've realized while making these videos is that there's an entire world of Indian mythological hidden inside games. So I've decided to finally play Raji, an ancient epic, for the first time. Not just a playthrough, but a deep dive. Whenever the game introduces a god or a demon or a mythological story, I'll pause and break down who they are, where the story comes from, what the original mythology says, and even point out references and Easter eggs that are easy to miss. So if you're interested in Indian mythological games or games in general, whether it's Raji or Unleash the Avatar, consider subscribing, because I think you're really going to enjoy what's coming next. I'll see you in the next one.